Shirley MacLaine's name resonates across Hollywood's golden eras and modern times alike, yet beneath the awards, standing ovations, and countless movie credits, she's also been called something far less glamorous: the worst mother. How does a star with such a dazzling career end up shouldering such a damaging label? The truth lies in a swirling mix of family conflicts, shocking revelations, and unconventional beliefs that have both fascinated and alienated those around her. From bold courtroom battles to unusual parenting choices, MacLaine's story unfolds like a Hollywood script in its own right, thrilling, unpredictable, and occasionally heartbreaking. Born in 1934 and named after the irresistibly charming Shirley Temple, MacLaine seemed destined for a life in the spotlight. With a drive to perform that started in her toddler years, she quickly learned that captivating an audience was her ticket to everything she ever wanted and more. But the same relentless ambition that skyrocketed her to fame was the force behind the turmoil simmering beneath her star persona. As her daughter Sachi would later accuse, MacLaine's commitment to the stage and screen eclipsed her responsibilities at home, sparking one of Hollywood's most famous parent-child feuds. In many ways, MacLaine's life mirrors the drama of her film roles: romance, betrayal, redemption, and reinvention, all rolled into one extraordinary existence. Critics have praised her as a fearless trailblazer. Detractors, including former co-stars, have deemed her self-centered and overbearing. Meanwhile, her daughter's explosive memoir painted a troubling portrait of a woman who was as distant as she was iconic. It all begs the question: can one of Tinseltown's brightest lights also be one of its darkest parental figures? Or is the truth far more complex than any tabloid headline? Let's dive deeper into MacLaine's story to find out. Early life and drive to perform. Before Hollywood executives ever uttered her name, Shirley MacLaine was already well acquainted with the power of performance. Born into a household where artistic pursuits were not just encouraged, but practically a family tradition, she discovered her love for the stage in early childhood. Her father, a would-be circus enthusiast, and her mother, a drama teacher, saw their daughter's budding passion as inevitable rather than surprising. With such nurturing influences, MacLaine wasted no time. At just 3 years old, she was dancing and prancing around the house, determined to showcase her gifts to anyone who would watch. But it wasn't just Shirley who had stars in her eyes. 3 years after her birth, her little brother, Warren Beatty, entered the scene. If Shirley's talent sprang from unstoppable enthusiasm, Warren's followed suit in his own unique way. Shirley famously described him as both her kid brother and her friend, as they made up skits, competed for attention, and fueled each other's creativity. However, the affectionate bond harbored an undertone of rivalry. As close as they were, Shirley would later admit that each child sometimes yearned to outshine the other in front of their parents, a dynamic that hinted at tensions waiting to surface. By high school, Shirley's determination to become a performer had crystallized. In the summer of her senior year, she set her sights on Broadway, a big leap for a teenager from Virginia, but MacLaine had never been one to settle for caution. Almost miraculously, she landed a gig as a chorus girl in a production of Oklahoma, and this taste of the stage convinced her that she'd found her life's calling. After graduation, there was no looking back. She plunged into the unforgiving world of auditions with a resolve that eclipsed any fear of failure. Little did she know, the break that would catapult her to stardom lurked just around the corner, waiting for an unexpected twist of fate to reveal itself. A meteoric rise in Hollywood. In 1954, fate took the form of a minor emergency. When the lead in the pajama game sprained her ankle, MacLaine, then a mere understudy, stepped into the spotlight, literally. Seizing the moment, she dazzled everyone in the audience, including film producer Hal B. Wallace. Sufficiently impressed, Wallace signed her on the spot to a 5-year deal with Paramount, opening the door to Hollywood. Just like that, the small town chorus girl was thrust into movie stardom, fulfilling a dream so grand she hadn't dared to fully imagine it. MacLaine's Hollywood journey kicked off with Alfred Hitchcock's The Trouble with Harry. Although the film wasn't a massive commercial success, her presence lit up the screen and won her a Golden Globe for Most Promising Newcomer. But success also brought pressures she never anticipated. For instance, she reveled in dining out with Hitchcock, basking in the glow of one of Tinseltown's most brilliant directors. Yet in a matter of weeks, an executive at Paramount phoned her, admonishing that she'd gained 25 pounds. That wasn't acceptable for an up-and-coming starlet, so she was told, quite bluntly, to curb her appetite or risk having her contract torn to pieces. Despite the humiliation, MacLaine took the directive in stride, determined not to let it stop her from climbing the Hollywood ranks. Her perseverance soon paid off. By 1958, she was racking up Oscar nominations for standout performances, including Some Came Running. Although she didn't clinch the statue that year, it was only the beginning of a long relationship with the Academy Awards. Directors noted that MacLaine wasn't just talented, she was fearless, unafraid to speak her mind. Off camera, however, her personal life was already becoming a battleground. Family ties, including those to Warren, grew increasingly complicated as both siblings aimed to make names for themselves. And while MacLaine basked in the limelight, the warmth of her personal relationships gradually began to cool. Friction with Warren Beatty. Warren Beatty, equally driven but eager to craft a separate identity, opted to become Warren Beatty rather than Warren Beatty, adding that extra T to distance himself from his sister's success. On one hand, he wanted to avoid riding Shirley's coattails. On the other, his simmering ego rebelled at being known merely as Shirley MacLaine's brother. Rumors claim that during an interview, he insisted a reporter introduce MacLaine as Warren Beatty's sister instead, an outburst that, once made public, left Shirley wounded. Feeling belittled, she retreated into silence, effectively launching what some have called the MacLaine-Beatty Cold War. Such a rift surprised many who knew them as siblings that used to cheer each other on. But ambition can be a potent toxin, transforming even the closest families into contentious rivals. For a time, Shirley refused to speak about her brother, and it appears Warren didn't mind forging ahead on his own. Despite this chilly period, the two eventually reconciled, though MacLaine has noted that their relationship has remained cyclical, with periods of closeness followed by stints of distance. She once said, Warren is the person she's known the longest, loved the longest, and always will. But these warm words haven't erased the complicated saga that began when each decided they deserved the bigger spotlight. Interestingly, the two never worked on a film together, a fact often attributed to Shirley's belief that they wouldn't be a good match on screen. That's not surprising, given each sibling's formidable charisma, singular style, and rumored short fuse when it comes to creative disagreements. To many, it's a Hollywood tragedy that these two powerhouses never teamed up. Imagine the stories they might have told. Then again, given the tensions that flared between them, perhaps it was best they stayed in separate corners of the cinematic universe, forging legends on their own Shirley terms. MacLaine approached romance with the same fearless attitude she displayed in her career. At just 18, she met businessman Steve Parker and felt an immediate shift, as though something or someone had altered her life's trajectory on the spot. They wed in 1954, and for a while it looked like a picture-perfect partnership. Parker filled multiple roles: confidant, advisor, best friend, and by MacLane's account, the love of her life. Yet that didn't mean the marriage conformed to traditional ideals. Far from it, in fact. Long before open relationships became a buzzword, MacLaine and Parker agreed to let each other explore external attractions. MacLaine staunchly believed she'd never be content chained to a promise made in the heat of passion. For nearly 3 decades, the arrangement worked, at least on the surface. Then came the day MacLaine discovered Parker had used her money to fund the lifestyle of his girlfriend. The revelation could have destroyed everything, but MacLaine, ever pragmatic, decided to hear him out. He claimed to be making strategic investments that just happened to fall through. Since her financial empire remained intact, MacLaine tried to move past the betrayal, chalking it up to a one-time lapse in judgment. This was the nature of MacLane's worldview: unorthodox, unyielding, and sometimes astonishing to outsiders. Her marriage lasted 28 years under these fluid terms, though it did eventually end. Even so, she rarely expressed bitterness in public interviews. Instead, she maintained that every experience, painful or otherwise, ultimately enriched her life story. This bold approach to romance not only illustrated her refusal to be boxed in by societal rules, but it also foreshadowed the even larger controversies yet to come, particularly concerning her parenting methods and the daughter who would eventually call her out in the most public way possible: the controversial mother-daughter rift. By 1956, MacLaine was also a mother, welcoming her daughter, Stephanie Sachi Parker, into the world. From the outside, one might imagine that success in Hollywood, plus a happy family at home, spelled perfection. But that image shattered when MacLaine and her husband chose to move to Japan with 6-year-old Sachi, believing Hollywood was no place to raise a child. Although noble sounding in theory, the plan had a critical flaw. Shirley would soon need to jet back to Los Angeles for work, leaving Sachi in Japan with Steve Parker. What initially looked like a temporary situation turned into a long-term reality. MacLaine visited Sachi primarily on holidays, while her career demanded her constant presence stateside. This was the first crack in their relationship, leading Sachi to feel increasingly abandoned. Over the years, the distance between mother and daughter stretched further, prompting silent resentments and unspoken pain. Publicly, MacLaine insisted that she loved Sachi and provided financial support, but Sachi recalled a different narrative, one in which she had to fend for herself most of the time. Decades later, the tension exploded in Lucky Me: My Life with and Without My Mom, Shirley MacLaine. Published by Sachi in 2013, the memoir shook Hollywood with allegations of neglect, betrayal, and emotional distance. In one shocking anecdote, Sachi claimed that she once spent Christmas alone at boarding school because both parents simply forgot her. She also accused MacLaine of undermining her acting career and refusing her any meaningful financial help. MacLaine swiftly denied the accusations, calling them dishonest and an attempt to profit from falsehoods. To this day, opinions remain divided. Some see Sachi as a child who never got the mother she deserved. Others believe MacLaine did the best she could under unique circumstances. Whichever view you take, there's no denying that MacLaine's reputation took a significant hit, reinforcing the worst mother title for years to come. MacLaine's offbeat style and headstrong confidence didn't always sit well with her Hollywood colleagues. Perhaps the most famous clash happened on the set of Terms of Endearment, where MacLaine played a mother figure opposite Deborah Winger. Though the film itself was a triumph, their behind-the-scenes relationship was anything but warm. MacLaine later claimed Winger would belch, pass gas, and otherwise make her disdain clear in the most unprofessional ways possible. At one point, Winger allegedly released a loud, unmistakable emission in MacLane's direction, an act that MacLaine interpreted as a deliberate insult. Despite the drama, the film soared, and MacLaine took home an Oscar for Best Actress, an achievement that could never be overshadowed by on-set feuds. Still, Deborah Winger wasn't the only co-star who found MacLaine hard to handle. Anthony Hopkins, whom she worked with on A Change of Seasons, reportedly dubbed her the most obnoxious woman he'd ever encountered on a film set. According to Hopkins, MacLaine was overbearing, controlling, and endlessly annoying, hardly the hallmark of a harmonious colleague. MacLaine, for her part, never seemed too rattled by the criticism. She shot back with curt remarks, professing she didn't like him much either. In truth, the friction might have stemmed from an intersection of two very strong personalities. But in the annals of Hollywood lore, stories of MacLane's ability to rankle her peers have become almost as famous as her award-winning performances. Yet no matter how many controversies boiled up around her, MacLaine plowed ahead, booking roles that showcased her incredible range. She was never lazy or complacent. In addition to over 60 film credits, she appeared on numerous television shows, tackled Broadway again, and authored a slew of books delving into esoteric topics. For an industry that thrives on gossip and scandal, MacLane's personal brand of defiance, a willingness to stand up to co-stars, producers, and even major studios, only added to her mystique. If her personal life and professional feuds weren't enough to sustain her notoriety, MacLane's spiritual explorations certainly pushed her even further into the public eye. Unlike most Hollywood icons who dabble quietly in alternative beliefs, MacLaine was vocal and prolific, penning around a dozen books that examined reincarnation, metaphysics, and the nature of the universe. She publicly declared her conviction in the existence of multiple lives, suggesting she'd previously lived in Atlantis and served as a harem girl in Turkey, among other incarnations. Her claims stirred widespread incredulity. Many critics branded her a kook, while others found her frank discussion of spirituality refreshing. MacLaine argued that the soul's journey stretches beyond any single lifetime, returning again and again in various forms, an idea at odds with mainstream religious views. But once again, her willingness to say the unsayable set her apart. Whether you consider her beliefs genuinely profound or creatively eccentric, there's no denying MacLane's metaphysical stance added yet another layer to her complex persona. In more recent years, MacLaine hasn't shied away from controversial statements either, sometimes hinting at conspiracy theories or making remarks that left even longtime admirers scratching their heads. Her unfiltered honesty, some might say lack of tact, has made her a lightning rod for criticism. Nonetheless, it also ensures she remains relevant. Decades after, many of her contemporaries have faded from the spotlight. There's a magnetism in someone who refuses to follow the script, who challenges people to question the boundaries of conventional thought. MacLaine never wavered in her convictions, no matter how far they strayed from Hollywood's comfort zone. In weighing Shirley MacLaine's extraordinary career against her troubled family narrative, a poignant question arises. Does her success overshadow her failures, or do the failures stain her legacy? For fans, MacLaine stands as a trailblazing legend, a woman who fought Hollywood's archaic contract system and won, a performer unafraid to tackle roles that demanded grit, sensuality, and emotional range. She's also a champion for women's independence, living life on her terms from open marriages to spiritual odysseys. But for her daughter, Sachi Parker, MacLaine represents an absentee figure who placed the call of stardom above the duties of motherhood. The memoir Lucky Me crystallized that narrative into the public sphere, painting MacLaine as willfully neglectful. It's this duality that makes Shirley MacLaine so fascinating. The resolute, unstoppable artist who shattered industry norms, paired with a mother who, according to allegations, rarely had time for her own child. Even the Hollywood suits learned quickly that crossing MacLaine was a risky move, as evidenced by her successful lawsuits, one of which climbed all the way to the Supreme Court and paved the way for fairer employment contracts in entertainment. Despite the controversies, and maybe even because of them, MacLaine continues to captivate. The very qualities that angered colleagues or estranged family members also contributed to her unstoppable momentum in the industry. Her rebellious spirit seemed tailored for a profession that rewards ambition and punishes timidity. Whether you see her as a fearless pioneer or a self absorbed diva likely depends on which chapter of her life story resonates most with you. Yet there's no denying her ability to command attention, for better or worse. The price of a dazzling life. Shirley MacLaine's life reads like a grand spectacle, full of triumph and turmoil, of blockbuster success and all too personal betrayals. She broke barriers for women in Hollywood, fought for her rights against powerful producers, and collected awards for performances that continue to enchant audiences worldwide. Yet behind that bold, unyielding exterior, we glimpse a family fractured by distance, misunderstandings, and resentments that spilled onto the public stage. Is she truly Hollywood's worst mother? Or merely a symbol of how the pursuit of fame can derail private relationships? The stories from her daughter suggest a profound void, a mother daughter bond that never had the chance to flourish. While MacLaine vehemently denies the accusations of neglect, some wonder whether her single minded devotion to her craft came at the cost of being present at home. In the end, the reality is likely more nuanced than any label could ever capture. One fact remains unchallenged. Shirley MacLaine's influence is etched into Hollywood history. She refused to play by the rules, embraced spiritual philosophies that sparked controversy, and soared to the highest echelons of cinematic acclaim, all while forging a path uniquely her own. Love her or loathe her, few can ignore her. The essential question is whether her ambition, drive, and boundless creativity outweigh the shadows of her personal life. In a world that idolizes success stories yet sometimes demonizes the people behind them, Shirley MacLaine stands as a figure both revered and rebuked, proving that every legend carries secrets within its shine.